You think you know what's scary? Forget the ghost stories and monster movies. The most chilling tales are the ones that are actually true. And no, we're not talking about Atlantis or El Dorado. We're talking about 5 real historical civilizations that vanished so completely, and in such bizarre ways, they still have archaeologists totally stumped. From a city you could only enter through the roof to a society that disappeared at the absolute height of its power. These stories prove that real history is way stranger and more terrifying than any fiction. History has its famous ghosts. We all know about the fall of Rome and the fading of the Egyptian pharaohs, but what about the others? The ones that are just a flicker at the edge of the map, leaving behind puzzles that have no easy answers. These aren't just societies that collapsed. These are societies that seem to have just vanished, leaving behind mysteries that feel like they were pulled from the pages of a horror novel. Today, we're counting down 5 of the most bizarre lost civilizations, whose stories challenge everything we think we know about the past. Number 5. Kicking off our list at number 5 is a place that's less of a city and more of a human beehive. Picture a town with no streets, no doors, and no ground floor windows. That was Çatalhöyük, a 9,000-year-old settlement in modern-day Turkey, and one of the world's very first urban centers. Homes were packed together wall to wall, forming one giant sprawling complex. So how did people get around? They walked on the rooftops. The only way into your house was through a hole in the ceiling, by climbing down a ladder. This design was a brilliant defense mechanism, basically turning the entire city into a fortress. But the weirdness didn't stop there. The people of Çatalhöyük had a uniquely intimate relationship with their dead. They buried family members right under the floors of their homes, often beneath the hearths and the beds they slept on. Sometimes, skeletons were dug up, their skulls were removed for rituals, and then they were reburied. This points to a deep, ongoing connection between the living and the dead, where your ancestors were literally the foundation of your home. For over 1,000 years, this bizarre society thrived. There's even some debate among archaeologists, based on genetic studies and how the homes were arranged, that it might have been a society structured around female lineage. Then, around 5700 BCE, they were just gone. There are no signs of a major war and no clear evidence of a plague or famine that wiped them out. The city was simply abandoned. Why would a culture that flourished for 1,400 years suddenly leave? Did something unravel their tight-knit community from the inside? Or did the environment change and make their way of life impossible? The silent homes offer no answers, only the eerie mystery of a city that you entered from the sky and that one day fell silent. Number 4. Our next lost civilization seems to burst into the history books out of nowhere, leaving behind an artistic legacy that is as stunning as it is mysterious. Deep in what is now northern Nigeria, the Nok culture appeared as far back as 1500 BCE. They were one of the first societies in West Africa to master iron smelting, a game-changing technology that gave them a huge advantage. But it's not their iron tools that fascinate us, it's their art. The Nok produced these breathtaking terracotta sculptures with a skill that seems impossibly advanced for the time. These are life-sized heads and figures with distinctive triangular eyes, incredibly detailed hairstyles, and expressions that feel hauntingly alive. Some figures seem to be suffering from diseases. Others are adorned with symbols of authority. For the longest time, these sculptures were the only proof the Nok even existed, appearing without any clear artistic tradition before them. It's like this incredible skill just bloomed, fully formed, out of the Nigerian soil. And then, just as suddenly as they arrived, they were gone. Around 300 CE, the Nok culture vanishes from the archaeological record. We have theories, of course: climate change, a lack of resources, maybe an epidemic. But with no written language, they're all just educated guesses. To make things worse, widespread looting of Nok sites has robbed us of the context for these artifacts, scattering their silent, enigmatic faces across the globe. The Nok left us a gallery of ghosts, but they took the secrets of who they were and why they left with them. Number 3. At number 3, we have a civilization that built some of the largest cities in prehistoric Europe, only to then methodically burn every single one of them to the ground. Meet the Cucuteni-Trypillians, a culture that flourished from about 5500 to 2750 BCE in modern-day Ukraine, Moldova, and Romania. At their peak, their settlements sometimes called mega sites, were bigger than any others on Earth, housing tens of thousands of people. They were master artists and architects, but they had one tradition that still baffles everyone. They would ritually burn their entire village down. Every 60 to 80 years, the whole community would set their settlement ablaze. And this was no accident. The evidence shows these were intentional, highly organized fires, requiring a massive amount of fuel to get hot enough to turn the clay walls of their homes into ceramic. After the inferno, they would just build a new settlement right on top of the ashes. So why? Why would a society spend decades building a thriving city just to torch it? The theories are as wild as the act itself. Some think it was a cleansing ritual, or maybe a way to fumigate the site. Others believe it was symbolic, that houses were seen as living things with their own life cycle, and the fire marked the death of the old village before a new one could be born. Another wild theory connects it to the dead. Since we found very few cemeteries, some think burning the house was a kind of mass cremation, turning the entire settlement into a giant offering to their ancestors. Around 2750 BCE, the practice stopped, and the culture itself faded away, possibly pushed out by invaders or broken by a changing climate. But the question of why they practiced this bizarre cycle of creation and destruction remains one of history's most fiery enigmas. All right, we are deep into our countdown of history's strangest disappearances. If you're finding these mysteries as fascinating as we do, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what we dig up next. Number 2. Coming in at number 2 is a civilization that breaks almost every rule in the book. The Indus, or Harappan civilization, was one of the 3 great cradles of society, right alongside ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. At its peak, it was the most widespread of them all, covering a massive part of modern-day Pakistan and India. And they were stunningly advanced. They built meticulously planned cities on a grid, with sanitation and sewer systems so sophisticated they wouldn't be matched for centuries. They had standardized weights for trade, and they had a system of writing. But that's where it gets really strange. After more than a century of trying, nobody has been able to decipher the Indus script. The inscriptions are frustratingly short, usually just 5 or 6 symbols long, and there's no Rosetta Stone to crack the code. This unreadable script has locked away their stories, their beliefs, their entire history. Even weirder is what's missing from their cities. In all the sprawling ruins, archaeologists have found no grand palaces, no huge temples, and really no clear signs of kings or a powerful ruling class. There's almost no evidence of an army or major wars. This was a massive, highly organized society that seemed to work without the power structures we see everywhere else. Was it some kind of egalitarian utopia, a society run by committees we just don't know? Their ending is just as much of a puzzle. Around 1900 BCE, the civilization started to decline. Trade dried up, the cities fell into decay, and their writing disappeared. The leading theory points to severe, long-term drought that messed up the river systems they depended on for farming. It seems the population slowly abandoned the great cities, scattering into smaller villages before fading from history altogether. The Indus Valley represents a truly terrifying idea, that a society can be massive, advanced, and peaceful, and still get completely erased by forces it can't control, its voice silenced forever. Number 1. Can you guess the civilization? Okay, we won't hold you in suspense any longer. And now, drum roll, for our number 1 most bizarre lost civilization. This is a society that carved one of the world's most incredible wonders out of solid rock, controlled crucial trade routes, and then pulled off the greatest vanishing act in history. These are the Nabateans, the master builders of the city of Petra. For centuries, the Nabateans were the undisputed masters of the desert. Popping up around the 4th century BCE in what is now Jordan, they were brilliant traders who became fabulously wealthy by controlling the flow of incense and spices from Arabia to the Mediterranean. Their capital, Petra, is a monument to their genius, a city of tombs, temples, and theaters carved right into rose-red cliffs. They were also masters of water engineering, creating a system of dams and channels that let a massive city thrive in the middle of a desert. Then, in 106 CE, the Roman Empire annexed their kingdom. But this wasn't a bloody conquest. By all accounts, it was a peaceful handover. For a while, life went on and Petra remained an important city. But slowly, the Nabatean people themselves just faded away. Their unique culture, their language, their religion, it all dissolved, leaving behind their spectacular empty city. By the 4th century CE, they were basically gone from the historical record. So where did they go? This is the ultimate mystery. Did they just assimilate into the larger Roman and Byzantine empires, their identity blending away over a few generations? Did new trade routes make their desert kingdom obsolete, forcing them to scatter? One of the most compelling theories is that as savvy business people, they saw the writing on the wall. They may have strategically moved their money and operations elsewhere, integrating into other trade networks. In a way, they might not have vanished so much as they rebranded. Unlike civilizations that fell to war or disaster, the Nabateans seem to have quietly and deliberately exited the stage of history, leaving a stunning, silent city as their final, unsolvable riddle. From cities with rooftop doors to a culture that ritually burned down its own towns, the stories of these lost civilizations are way more than just footnotes. They're chilling reminders of how fragile a society really is, and how an entire world of customs and beliefs can be completely swallowed by time. They prove history isn't a neat story of progress, but a messy landscape of mysteries that we might never get the answers to. The greatest horror story isn't always about a monster or a ghost. Sometimes it's just an unanswered question, and the terrifying thought that an entire people can thrive for 1,000 years and then just disappear. Which of these civilizations do you think is the most bizarre? Was it the ritual house burning of the Cucuteni-Trypillians, or the silent, kingless cities of the Indus Valley? Drop your theories down in the comments below. And if you want to explore more of history's secrets, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on.